Okay. Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another interview. It's actually not my first time sitting down for an interview with Moki, but the first time was actually in person. I was thinking about that this morning, Moki. That must have been 2016, so 4 years
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
almost.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I think it's four
uh,
years ago. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's been a little while, but in case any of you guys have never seen that interview, this is Moki. Moki, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Who are you? Where are you from?
Hey, everybody. I'm Moki from Moki Plamo. I'm a Philippine modeler. I was interviewed before in a local shop, Plamo Attack here in the Philippines. Zach noticed my
Mhm.
work primarily on the IBO kits, and I remember sending one, the most recent one I
Mhm.
finished before, as a gift. I hope it's still there, though.
I still got it. It's in my display
Yeah.
case. There's like only a few kits there. Yeah.
Ash. I could have taken a picture of the ones friend sent me. Your gap plant is in my display cabinet downstairs with the rest of the other builds from other modelers like Jeff Montoya from Team Helios.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the same. I don't well, I don't know if you have other people's or other works of yours, but in my display space is pretty small, so it's pretty much just kits that I've got from other people. It's not really my own stuff in there, but yeah, I still have your kit. And again, if you guys have never seen that, I did a video on that once I got back from the Philippines, showing off Moki's cool Barbatos build that he gave me. So yeah, I love that. It's really cool. But
Ah,
yeah,
thanks, man.
I was a yeah, you're welcome. I was a fan of your work back then, and you've probably made in 4 years how many builds since then? Like 400 builds since
I've
then.
lost count,
You made a
honestly.
Yeah, you probably made a lot of stuff in the in between time, and so as we've talked about before, that's one thing that I love about your work is how quickly you're able to put out really cool works and stuff. So definitely, that's one thing that we'll have to talk about again later on today.
Of
Is
course.
just talking about your building process. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
interested in that because if people follow your work, they're probably maybe also interested in how you're always building and putting out these cool kits so quickly, but they're really interesting works. So we'll get into that. And yeah, just on a side note for people who are watching live and if anyone who's watching later, I just want to point out technically, you may notice I don't know if the sound is okay, but my room is very empty now as I'm in the middle of moving. So, and also just my kind of setup here is not ideal, but yeah, I'm in the middle of moving to my new space, and so that's why it may look and sound a little different than usual. But apologies for that. Anyway, now that's out of the way, so let's get into it. Okay, so in the past 4 years since our last interview, what's changed for you? How have you changed? How do you think you've developed as a modeler since we last spoke?
Man, the past 4 years have been crazy because I have not been as productive as the last time you've talked to me, except when
Mm-hmm.
this entire quarantine thing started. Work
Mm-hmm.
has been super busy, but I've been trying to get squeeze in
Mm-hmm.
time, like one update a day on working on things. It came to a point that I was around just one model a month from what I'm
Mm,
normally used to. So
yeah.
that's one thing that's changed. But in terms of how I build, I guess I've gotten a bit. I've lessened the usual finish that I do. I've changed
Mm,
painting styles in since 2017. Before I was trying to do
mm,
like black and white zenithal lighting on my models, but right now I'm just playing around with black basing in terms
mm,
of painting. And I've been slowly trying to build up my kit bashing skills to see which works and which doesn't because I've been
mm,
fairly conscious about building up a model and making it actually look not off. It's hard to describe, but you can tell a model's
mm,
off in terms of design
mm,
when you're kit bashing something when one element of the kit doesn't fit the rest of it. I'm trying to work on that.
mm. you want it to look like something that like Bandai would actually produce something, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something close to that. I've been just rereading
So that it
over
doesn't
and
look like a
over.
kit bash? Mm.
It still should because the build series from Build Divers, Build Fighters,
Mm.
they've been trying to establish that as a style, and I'm really feeling comfortable working with that. But there's just certain kits that
Mm.
when you put them together, there's designs that just click into place. And there are designs that you
Mm.
really just have to work around to make them fit, figuratively and literally.
Mm. Yeah, sure. A lot more modifications involved with certain kits, certain parts, of course. But
Yeah.
before we get to talking more about kit bashing, because that's something that I know as way back when you were doing a lot of kit bashing, and it's still something that you do, and I think you've always been pretty good at that. But before we get back to that, you just mentioned about zenithal priming, and I think for people who don't know about that, you want to explain what that is for people who don't know.
All right. I haven't reviewed I haven't reviewed the definition, but as far as I remember it, it's establishing a
Yeah.
single point of lighting when you're painting a model. Usually, miniature gamers do that by priming the entire thing black and
Mm.
from right above, spraying an additional primer layer of white just to
Mm.
establish a single point of source coming down. So you get the shadows
Mm.
immediately from a single direction that guides how you're going to put the colors on your model.
Mm. So basically, you're using multiple colors of primer to create the illusion of shadows when you go
Yeah.
to paint it. Um, if anyone's interested in that, I would recommend. I'm sure you can find different tutorials and things about that. Yeah, it's something that's primarily used, I think, much more so in miniature painting, not so much in Gunpla, but yeah, it's an interesting technique, and so I think it's cool to try that. But you've now primarily, as you said, and as I've noticed in your work, you've got switched over to just black priming, which I think is pretty bold because I get kind of annoyed having to spray like white or any light colors just over gray primer, but having to spray that over black would just drive me crazy. So how has that been, working with black primer on everything?
It's actually like going back to my roots. Back then, when I
Yeah.
started airbrushing, the only tutorial available to me was a PDF I found on the internet about Max Watanabe's style of painting. When he was painting
Yeah.
SD Gundam with that sort of
Mm.
style of starting entirely with black and just adding the colors
Mm.
on it themselves. Of course, I can't read Japanese, so I
Mm.
couldn't understand the
Mm.
fine explanation of how it works, what it does with tonal details and stuff like that. But I just thought it was pretty
Mm.
cool because you get instant shadows
Mm.
with black. So when I tried black
Mhm.
basing, I checked it up on um, aircraft modeler's page, Duke's Models. He had a
Mm.
very in-depth explanation on why black basing was his preferred style over a pre-shade of black, mostly because
Mm.
I go on the black primer with a stippled or a mottled pattern of my base color. And then when I establish a
Mm.
bit of a variation of black shadows and the base color in different splotches, I mist over that with a thinned down version of my base coat. And that establishes a sort of discoloration pattern on the kit
Mm.
that really helps when
Mm.
you're gonna go down with even just basic weathering with washes or acrylic sponge chipping. It really goes a long way making it look like it's been out there in the environment.
Mm.
So I'm kind of into that for the most part.
Yeah. And so we'll take a look at some of your examples here in a bit, and we can talk more about that, seeing the examples too. But so you don't really do a lot of like pre-shading and like traditional pre-shading, like along the lines. Then necessarily you just go black base and then you build up your colors over that to create the look of pre-shading without doing it the way that we typically think of it.
Yeah, I'm
Is that right?
honestly not that confident with going with fine lines on an airbrush, so I tend to
Mm,
go
yeah.
with just a really black and just fill in the spaces
Mhm.
up to the panel
Yep.
lines.
Yep. Mm. So it's a good, interesting, different way to do that. Yeah, because that's what I hear. I think probably most often from people when talking about appreciating why people don't appreciate. Maybe that usually they'll say like, I want to try it, but I'm like my hand's too shaky. It's hard for me to draw the lines. It seems to be like, the most common reason why people don't try appreciating. So it's good to know that, good for people to know that there's other different ways to create the same similar look, right? But doing it a little bit differently.
Yeah,
So why don't we just take a look at a couple of examples here? Is there any particular one that you'd like to see? That would be a good example of that.
I'm good with any because it's
Okay.
better for the host to pick what they like.
Well, there's a lot of you sent me some cool examples here, so I just want to pick a cool one. Let's start. Let's start with just one of your kit bashes here, and we can see some cool examples of that. All right, open these and screen share. Here we are. Add. There we go.
Hey,
All right, it's a good one to choose, or what?
it's great.
Okay, so tell us about this build. What did you do with this?
All right, the Brave Burning Gundam. This is my. It was supposed to start out as a Yamato Gundam build for people who are into G
Mm,
Gundam. That's one of the designs from one of the side mangas, particularly it
mm,
was supposed to be Master Asia's Gundam before the
mm,
Colon Gundam. But yeah, this is my attempt at building a sort of homage to the Yamato Gundam by using a tri-burning Gundam as a base
mm,
with parts
mm,
from the Shining. I really had this is what I was talking about before when things don't blend and you have to work extra to make them work
mm,
because the
yep,
shoulder parts
yep,
is a mismatch of the Shining Gundam's shoulder covers on top of the Tri-Burning's normal shoulders. This
mm,
is also the first time that I've really tried going for scribing in terms of making color
mm,
separation modifications.
mm,
It's it's I don't know how people do it. I really don't know how people are
mm,
able to make really nice scribed lines. Like it's the same thing with pre-shading. When people have shaky hands like me, they're not gonna try something for other people that
mm,
might be super simple but very effective.
mm,
The shoulders really are my favorite part of that build because I made it look I made it blend. Um
mm,
I mean it's easy to tell which parts come from where, but um
mm,
the shoulders just make me happy for looking like it's from a you can't immediately identify which kit it came from unless you saw
mm,
the work in progress pictures. This
mm,
one was an enjoyable experience to paint because it's all bright colors and that's
mhm,
my go-to colors of blue, white, first reds, the usual yellow,
mm,
and then the
mm,
modifications for the head was enjoyable because I was trying to make it match at the very least the basic design of the Yamato Gundam.
mm,
This pretty much made me more confident to work on other kit bashes, really.
mm. This one you did about a year ago, sometime last year, right?
Yeah, January, I think.
January of this year.
January of 2019.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it's been a little while, but and yeah, you can see really well too the effect, what we were talking about of it looking like pre-shading here from building up those colors. It looks really nice. And yeah, even though you're going over a dark primer, the colors still look really nice and bright. Almost like the red almost looks a little bit like pastel-y, kind of for how bright the red
That's
is
a
on that.
really, yeah, that's a really weird side effect of going with black. Any color
Mm-hmm.
you put on tends to get toned down a bit when it comes to saturation.
Mm-hmm. And just on a side note, since we're on the topic of paint, what's your preferred type of paint? What do you usually paint with?
Hmm. As in type of paint, I always go for the lacquer paints because of how fast they dry down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like literal seconds,
And
touch
Ian,
dry, it's good.
any particular brand that you like to stick to?
For this one, it was Armored Komodo lacquers. I was testing out their basic
Mm-hmm.
color line of paints. It really went
Mm-hmm.
down well. Um,
Mm-hmm.
s- my go-to paint, of course, since it's honestly the best kind of lacquer paint you could get anywhere, is Gaia. I think it for me, it's a really great brand.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay, yeah.
then yeah, Gaia, Armored Komodo, then Gunze. Gunze because of the variety of military colors they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, yeah. And let's see. Yeah, you also modified the kind of gauntlets there on the arms as well, right? Those are based off of the Shining Gundams?
Yeah, those
Or
gauntlets actually came from the Star Burning.
yeah, okay, okay, okay. And I do really like the addition of the little circle bits that you've added there, and then on a couple other places on the kit too, right? On the legs
Yeah,
and the forearms there.
yeah, the rivet
It's a nice.
parts really blend.
Mm-hmm.
I figured it should have round parts because it's a G Gundam inspired build.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. It definitely helps make it look like something more from G Gundam, having the little round bits on there too. Definitely. So you said this was like your first time really giving a go at doing scribing as well?
Yeah, pretty much. At least scribing in terms of really large. I
Hmm.
had to do it freehand because I really didn't know how to measure it.
Yeah. So for this, because it's kind of like following the edge of the shape. So did you have tape that you're using, like just putting the tape along the edge of there and then just kind of using the tape as a measuring guide?
Yeah, I was kind of stuck based on the tape I had.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if I have it
Yeah, yeah.
here. I think this is it. It's just a scribing tape. I forgot what the
Mm-hmm.
measurement of it is, but people can already tell how much I love scribing because of how much tape is still on here. It's hardly
Yeah.
used.
Well, well, yeah, that's one thing that I wanted to get into today too, because I know that at least from from what I've noticed of your work, that you don't usually do a lot of scribing. So I wanted to ask you: is that something that you would like to do more in the future, or is just something that you just kind of you're fine, like not really being that interested in it, or what do you think about
I am not afraid to tell people that I am honestly afraid of scribing.
that? Yeah.
But I really do want to try it. I'm just maybe it's gonna take more studying on my part on how to scribe and not make it look awful.
Mm-hmm.
The placement of the lines, the angles, whether you should add a divot or a small vent along the
Mm-hmm.
lines. It's
Yeah.
placement that it's the placement of the lines that intimidate me because it can make or break the model.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. And you know, everything's fixable, but not that easy to fix and time consuming. So it's just kind of a
Yes,
pain, right?
it's a huge pain to clean up.
Yes, I understand. Uh, and we'll take a look at another build here in a second, but too, since we were talking about paint brands, and I know also one thing that just I know from hearing from people there in the Philippines, problem that people run into is just where to get their stuff. So do you have any like preferred or recommended, especially for people watching who are also in the Philippines, any recommendations for like good places to get your Plamo paints and all that kind of stuff?
Is this before quarantine or during quarantine?
Uh, uh, from now into the future. So
From
what
now
any
into the
recommendation?
future. Ah, man. Going out to physical stores to just look for paints, I would recommend GMN Hobby. It's a local store
Mm,
here in the Philippines that carries a lot of the military scale modeling paint brands.
mm,
Then, of course, there's Plamo Attack because they have a really great selection of Japanese paints. Gaia. I remember they
mm,
had E7. I think that's a Taiwanese brand. And Gunze, yeah,
mm,
they carry those. For online shopping, I just
mm,
buy directly from some of the local sellers, the local producers of
mm,
model paint here because it's more convenient. Right now, the only
mm,
limitation for ordering from local suppliers is the range of colors that they're offering. But I've heard
mm,
things about people expanding their line, so I'm just gonna wait for that. If you're lazy like me,
mm,
ordering online is a godsend. So
mm,
I can't actually recommend some stores from the online shopping apps that I use, which is Shopee and Lazada, mostly because one, their shop names are unspellable. It's a jumble of numbers and letters
uh,
with .ph on them to
sure.
make them local.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
offer
Yeah.
brands like Gaia at the markup though,
Mm,
but it's still good.
yeah. Mm. So there's a lot of places, that people can go to get their stuff. And yeah, as you mentioned that before we started, that your guys' stay-at-home quarantine is going to be lifted soon. So hopefully people can get back out and get to some local shops and stuff. But
Yeah.
fingers crossed, right? Uh, all right. So before we get into then taking a look at another build example, like I said before, I want to talk about your process because this is something I know we talked about this in our original interview ages, and maybe it's changed a little bit, but you usually tend to work pretty quickly, as you said. As you've gotten more busy with work, kind of in recent years, it's slowed down a little bit, but I think you still have a good system for working, at making good quality stuff, but pretty quickly. So you want to talk a little bit about what's kind of your normal process, like start to finish, kind of give a sort of timeline of that.
I don't know if it helps for people, but my system has changed slightly since the last time we talked. When I
Mm-hmm.
do my when I start out with a build, when I take a kit from the backlog to do a painted build, I do the snap building on weekends because that's the most
Mm-hmm.
time that I'm not disturbed. And
Mm-hmm.
while I build, I do the prep. Like I can't
Mm-hmm.
remember if I explained this the same way. When I build it, I remove the nubs. I glue together the seams while I'm doing the model from opening the manual, cutting out the parts. So
Mm-hmm.
by the time that I finish the manual, I'm done with the model kit, and all I have to do is just sanding. Sanding will just usually take me like an hour to do for older kits, but ever since we started the All Gundam project line of kits, going from there, it's been less and less seams for me to work on. So it's really faster, honestly. If people cleaned up while they built, which is I think a lot of people do, they'll get a
Mm-hmm.
kit prepped in the day. So that leaves me with the weekdays on working days, where I usually paint at night. 1 to 2 hours a night, just painting. I work in segments. So Monday is like for the head and torso. Tuesdays, I do the limbs. Wednesday, maybe the accessories, the backpack, the shield, the weapons. Thursday, I try to go back to sections when it comes to detailing, adding decals per section, head, arms, legs. Friday should be
Mm-hmm.
around if I'm feeling like doing the slight weathering. So
Mm-hmm.
Saturdays, it's already spraying top coat on the thing and it's a photo shoot. So I start from
Mm-hmm.
Saturday. The next Saturday, it's done and ready for a gallery.
Yeah. Very simple. And also, maybe we should also mention that usually you work on high grade stuff. I think it's safe to say that high grade is your favorite grade
It's
of models. Is
super,
that true?
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's super fast. And I don't have to worry about cleaning up inner frames too much because those sorts of things, honestly, in the past few master grades that I built, I always lose an inner frame part. When I finish a
Mhm.
build, I find it again. And thankfully, when it comes to master grades, most of the time you don't have to glue armor panels on if you want to show it.
Mhm.
But if it's something pretty obvious, like a piston that's missing, I will just
Mhm.
have to take the thing apart, put it together after painting the missing part, and pray to God that nothing, no
Yeah.
paint chips off. So it's kind of annoying for me. So
Right.
that's why I work on high grades
Yeah.
because I tend to lose less parts.
Yeah. And just kind of generally yeah, simpler build, right? But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you from time to time you've worked on different master grades. What was the most recent one that you've built to master grade?
The most recent one that I finished was a G3 Origins Gundam. I
It's
think
been a little while.
I have a couple of master grades in the back. I'm building an NGF90 in on and off, and even though it's already this small,
Mm.
I'm still losing parts.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a small kit, but very pretty complicated and a lot of little parts on that kit. Yeah, so I can understand
Yeah.
that. Uh, but so yeah, you I mean you go through your process and how much prep work you do at the same time while you're doing like your first initial buildup of the kit. Yeah, I think can speed along the process. And for me, it kind of depends. Usually, I'm just kind of, hang on, someone's cutting trees right outside my window. I'll close that, but I don't know how much quieter it's going to be. Uh, yeah, usually for me, like if I'm just building up a kit to do a review or whatever, then I'm just making it look presentable, but not doing a whole lot of like painting prep work at that time. So yeah, then I'll have to disassemble and do a lot more prep work. But yeah, I can I can say just from experience as well too on the few times that I've done it, doing all your prep work and like some sanding and seam removal like at the same time when you're building up the kit at first uh, does usually help the process to speed along a little bit. And what I find interesting too is that you'll like is how you're talking about how you'll paint in sections. Like you said, Monday, for example, you'll do like the torso and the head, and the next day like the arms and the legs, painting up all those sections. I think that's really interesting, and I'm not sure, but if I had to guess, I would say pretty uncommon way to paint because I think generally people would just want to paint like by color, for example. So like all the red parts of the kit, like no matter which section, they just paint all those at once, and then all the white parts at once is how I would do, and I think maybe most people. But it's interesting that you just do in different sections at a time. So is there any particular reason, or you like doing that versus the other way, or what?
It's a force of habit, and mostly
Mm-hmm.
because of limitation of space here. When I do
Mm-hmm.
people, when I if I have a wide space to work in, I can go with the usual thing of going color by color because of course that makes more sense.
Sure.
I do my thing with just doing sections because it kind of reduces the parts count
Mm-hmm.
for any single session that I'm doing. That doesn't
Mm-hmm.
that's not necessarily when it comes to the legs because of course they have a lot of parts. But for the most
Mm-hmm.
part, it's easier for me to finish in an hour or two when I go by the sections because there are things that I've done on certain sections that collapse them into just one part. Others is doing it like in two or three sections. It's just the same color anyway, so I'll just paint them as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of saves time for me. So it's a bit of less things to worry about. given the small amount of space and time that I work with.
Mm-hmm. And especially if you're working with colors that are not like custom mixed or whatever, you don't have to worry about that. If you're custom
Yeah.
custom mixing the colors, and you have to worry about matching it by doing it at different times. But so for anyone else out there who's watching, who's maybe under similar circumstances, you have limited space or limited time per day to work on something, and maybe it's just something that you could try if you're airbrushing, trying it the way Moki's talking about doing it, and instead of kind of the maybe typical way of how people usually go about painting. It might be something that maybe more people could also get used to and prefer if they tried that. So, all right, then. I mean, yeah, it's still very impressive. Just the timeline of building like that. So I always enjoy seeing your work in progresses, because it's not like sometimes you'll see people's work in progress and it'd be like a couple photos a week, and then like a month and a half later or something like that, it's done. But yours would be like done within a few days. So it's good for now, like in the online social media world, we want everything like real quick, right? And so it's nice to see your stuff progress really quickly. I always like that.
It's like people can tell my page. People can tell it's a post from me when they see just a Gundam torso that's painted. Oh, that's him.
Yeah.
Every week.
Yeah, sure. And yeah, we should point out, and we'll mention this again later on. But while I'm opening up these pictures here, you want to just mention about where people can find your social media stuff?
All right. It's all the same name. I have a Facebook page. It's under Moki Plamo. The Twitter page is also Moki Plamo. The Instagram is also Moki Plamo, and I maintain two gallery pages on two Japanese websites. Although I use one more than the other. One is Gunsta. It's my favorite so far because the admin is just so friendly. There's Modeler's G, but I haven't been on there since they changed their uploading interface.
Yeah, Modeler's G is cool, but it's a little bit of a pain to use sometimes.
It didn't used to be like that, but nowadays, yeah. It's kind of hard to navigate.
But basically people can find you Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, mostly just all Moki Plamo. And we'll mention that again towards the end of the video too, just in case anyone is coming in later. But let's take a look here at one of the vignettes here that you sent. This is obviously the wound word. And first of all, that decal is so cool on there. Did you use did you get some, where's that from?
I love that decal because friends keep calling it a tramp stamp. It's
I didn't thought about that, but
it's from the Magic Cube Hazel, the third-party Magic Cube Hazel. They're just so huge. Okay. I like it. I've seen aircraft that have really big tail fin designs, and I really wanted to put that on the wound work because it's such a huge space to work on.
Yeah, right. There's not a lot of spaces on, especially 1/44 scale Gunpla, that you could fit a decal that size.
Yeah, that's true. So it was great.
So it was a cool fit, and I love the addition of the little guy on the wire there, sort of crew member leading it out or whatever.
Yeah.
So the color, obviously pink. What was the inspiration for that?
A friend suggested I do Aegis Gundam colors because it transforms, but I'm not sure if this is still Aegis Gundam or Justice. Because there's blue on the chest and white.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not familiar enough with them to be able to pick out the individual sections, but yeah, Justice Gundam maybe. Anyway,
Yeah, it is, I think.
It's a really nice color on there, I think. It does look really cool. What did you build for the base? I'm trying to see from the photos, but is that base just built up from different like scrap parts or something?
It's actually just it's a wooden plinth, and on top of that, I just added
Mhm.
a PVC board cut into sections, and I added detailing by using thin strips and thin plates of styrene. The
Mhm.
radome part that's supposed to be jutting out, it's supposed to be the side of a
Yep.
ship, came from several different things. It's a miniature base, some MS lens parts that I had left over, and some scrap arm parts from a old school non-grade 1:144 Victory kit.
Uh-huh.
The
Yeah.
figure is from Wave. Ah man, I forgot to include. I scratch built
Mm.
a small maintenance vehicle, a small skiff on the inside part between the gun and the woundwort. It's not seen on the photos I gave. Sorry about that, guys.
Uh,
It's it's made from a core fighter.
it's down there.
Yeah, that's where the lifeline of the
Uh,
small maintenance guy is coming from.
mhm. Yeah, and the composition of this is really great. I love how you have the line from that really super long gun, and then the angle of the actual mobile suit off to the side, and then the way the base and all the composition of it is very nice. The posing of this and
Thanks.
everything. And we'll take a look at your other vignette example that you also sent, but uh, definitely when, because like I think your work I always like, it really looks great, but especially when you put them up in vignettes like this, looks great. Let's take a look at the other one that you sent here. Because this one is also very nice. So open that. Hang on. Open. This would be your Gerbera. Oops, that one. And this was quite recently. This was one you just recently finished a month or so ago, right?
Yeah.
Here you are. So this one you got the pairing of the SEMA figure, and that's the rollout version of the Gerbera, right?
Yeah, that's the one I have, the rollout, the P Bandai rollout version.
Mhm. Basically, it has a different head. That's all. Yeah. And slightly different colors. Is the colors like the actual colors like that with all the white bits, or that was something that you added?
Yeah, it's something I added in. The base colors
Mm,
of the rollout is pretty boring. It's just the same as the normal Gerbera Tetra.
yeah,
I had added in the
yeah.
white because I wanted it to
Mm-hmm.
look a bit more like the Gerbera Tetra Kai.
Mm, yeah. And then obviously you added what are those? The not builders parts, but the Jigen, how the HG hand parts, custom hand parts for that.
Yeah, the build
Forget the name
custom
exactly.
hands.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there you go. Uh, so those, I mean, look really well, like with just the look of this flying like that. So again, this one not really much of like a built-up base compared to the wound warp, but I mean, it's just a simple base here. This is also just a round black plinth.
Yeah, it's a round black plinth, and I tried doing a galaxy pattern on it because
Mhm.
I wanted it to look like the opening credits for 0080, 83, because like
Mhm.
when Ko is running in the background and
Mhm.
it's just the galaxy. It's
Mhm.
a look I wanted to retain for this because I think it fit thematically with the entire race.
Mhm.
Yeah, something like that.
And yeah, so I mean, simple base, but still just the composition of the kit on the base, and then together with the figure as well, is just really nicely assembled here, I think. And so we should also talk about your figure painting, because that's something that you weren't doing when we talked before, right? So something you just kind of started to do over the past couple years, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
it got a bit of an interest for me because I started buying frame arms girls around that time, I
Uh-huh.
think.
Hmm.
So the figure painting for working on those was pretty much a must for me.
Hmm.
It just bled
Yeah.
into the miniatures thing when people were
Hmm.
asking me to try my hand painting Kingdom Death stuff for them. So
Hmm.
I just took what I learned from that and put it on the 120 scale schema.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, it looks great, and we have the Kingdom Death one that you also sent here, or at least the Oktoberfest. I'll open that so we can take a look at this one here as well. So yeah, for something that you kind of just recently got into, I think you're quite good at this too. So how have you been kind of just like self-teaching yourself this, and like what kind of paints you're using? What are you been doing to paint these figures?
Oh wow. I've been watching a lot of modelers YouTube channels for miniature painting just to get a feel of how it's done. One I would recommend would be Miniac.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been learning a lot from him. So what I learned from him, I pretty much apply on any miniature model that I'm doing. Although this one is cheating a bit because I like to airbrush the base colors on my miniature because again it saves time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I go hand painting with highlights, details such as the face,
Mm-hmm.
textures, but most of it still airbrush.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So airbrushing the different pieces before you put it together, and then do your detail
Yeah.
painting
If
on
I
that.
can't take it apart, I will suffer through the process of masking it with blue tack.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For me, that's better than fixing up wrong brushstroke, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so these have been really impressive to see you painting some of these as well. I think there's a couple more, but let's just take a look at all these too, including your Char as well. Here we are. This is a little bit larger, isn't it, than 120 scale? It must be 1/12 or something.
Yeah, I think that no, that's larger than 1/12, around 1/8.
Ah,
It's a
it's
band
Ben
presto.
Presto, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so it must be, yeah, 1/8 or it could be larger even. It's pretty big. So this was a PVC figure that you repainted.
Yes. Taking it
Mm.
apart was a pain.
Mm. Did you have to use something? Did you use any sort of product to like try to dissolve the glue, or you just pull it apart?
It's an interesting thing because I found out by working on this that they put it together with super glue. So I
Mm-hmm.
just had to use acetone or an
Uh-huh.
acetone-based super glue remover just to pry it apart and
Yep.
keep everything
Mm-hmm.
relatively intact. So putting
Mm-hmm.
it together, I just use super glue again because that's what they use in the factory anyway.
Yep.
Painting
Yep.
the face of this was really great for me because there's so much nice sculpt detail on the actual figure that got ruined by factory paint.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
when you strip it down, it's like a really great sculpt. So I tried bringing
Mm-hmm.
that out with my normal painting, figure painting methods.
Mm-hmm. So you mean like the paint they used at the factory was just really thick?
Super thick, super thick
Mm-hmm.
and offline. Like
Mm-hmm.
the eyes didn't line up with the paint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, well, so I was going to ask you, but maybe this is the answer to the question I was going to ask. But I was going to ask you why did you want to repaint this? Because it's a pre-painted figure, so you just thought you could do it better, or what?
It it was a commission actually.
Okay.
Zaku Cebu, one of the carriers
Uh-huh.
of
Yeah.
Armored Komodo paints, as well as a supplier of model supplies, resin kits, and model kits here in the Philippines, asked me to paint this for
Mhm.
him. I said, sure. Wouldn't be too hard because it's a really simple Banpresto kit. I was really surprised
Mhm.
at the amount of detail it really had underneath all that bad paint.
Yeah. Yeah, very
Like,
nice. So, uh, people are sometimes asking about like where to get the little 120 scale resin kits and things like that. But if you want to practice like this kind of painting, you can do it on just different PVC figures and stuff like this. Things probably easier and cheaper to get because there's a lot of different kind of stuff out there that Ben Presto makes for different things. So that was really cool
yeah, I
to
highly
see.
recommend people
And
to repaint.
yeah, it came out really nice. This is very small, isn't this? Like 1/35th scale or something?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I was
Man,
gonna say I've seen this figure before. I know it's a really tiny one. So this whole scene, people should know, is like this big, probably about like that.
yeah, the base is a coffee coaster.
Yeah. So this has got to be, at least as far as I know, maybe one of your first times also building up a natural scene diorama, right?
Yeah, I used a lot of
Mm-hmm.
bush foliage here, and
Mm-hmm.
the Deinonychus behind her is actually a conversion of a Tamiya Velociraptor. I was so
Mm-hmm.
really into the idea of dinosaurs having feathers that I just had to sculpt an entire
Mm-hmm.
um, Velociraptor with feathers for that. But since the
So
Velociraptor takes up scale, yeah, the original scale is
the original kit
1/35,
didn't
it's too
have
small.
feathers.
Yep.
Mm,
The original model
yeah.
was released in 1990, around the time that Jurassic Park was a thing, a big thing. So Tamiya
Uh-huh.
came out with dinosaur models that were based off of those
Mm-hmm.
designs. So
Mm-hmm.
when I started this, we finished watching Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Jurassic
Mm-hmm.
World Fallen Kingdom, and I was pretty much inspired by the theme of dinosaurs in a modern age. So there's a
Mm-hmm.
tiny duck in front from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Machine
I
and
can see it.
Krieger 135th kits, an
Mm-hmm.
Atelier IT 135th girl figure, and the Tamiya 135th
Yep.
dinosaur.
Mm-hmm. So everything is in scale there.
Yeah,
And how was it painting 1/35th? It's challenging.
I could not handle painting fine details because my wrist was
Mm.
just on fire after that. My
Mm.
wrist, the back of
It
my
looks great though.
index finger. It's decent. Thank you. It's decent, I think.
It's tough to do. I think, like, especially like, compared with this. This is like huge compared to this girl is probably like the same height as probably like Char's like head here,
Yeah.
basically. So I mean, with considering the scale, I mean, I think it looks very good. And how did you find working with the mud effects and the water and everything? That's just oh, I had some in here, but it's just like kind of the bottle of like liquid water that you can spray. It's not something resin that you had to mix or anything, right?
Hmm. Actually, this was 5-minute UV resin for the water effects. I
Oh,
found it set. I
okay.
found it settled better as a liquid
Hmm.
because it won't really cure until you shine a black light on it.
Okay.
So I could just play around with it with a toothpick for the moment to have it settle,
Hmm.
and then
Hmm.
when I cure it with the UV light, I can add the water effects on top to make small waves.
Hmm. Okay. Yep.
Yes, it saves
Yeah.
me material in terms of the water effects because they are way more
Mm-hmm.
expensive than just clear repair resin you can get from a hardware store.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It looks great. Again, for I mean, just something, just a small little thing to do like that. It's very cool. Just a mix of everything. The little Mac K duck. The how did you fix the seam? Because I know that those Mac K animals in that set just all have like seam right down the middle of them. So Did you find that a little bit kind of a pain to remove that tiny seam on that thing?
It was extremely difficult to clean up because they're just two halves. I just
Yeah.
uh, used more than the regular amount of cement on it. I even just skipped using Tamiya Extra Thin. I just used the normal
Hmm.
white cap Tamiya cement because it melts
Hmm.
more. So I'd be sure,
Hmm.
even if it's a mess around the middle of just a goop of plastic, if I clean that off, it's all nice and cleaned. But the thing about that is
Yeah.
I lose a lot of feather detail. It
Yeah.
sucked, but it had to be done.
Yeah. 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 Uh, the one thing I found with those is because you have all the nice detail of like, and then there's the dog and the cat ones as well, and like all the details of the fur or feathers, whatever. That so you don't want to over sand and lose all the details.
Yeah,
But
man.
then the good thing is that like if it's a Gundam kit or something, you need to get this surface like really super smooth. With this, you don't need it like that smooth. If it's a little rough, it just kind of blends in with all the little details, right? So yeah,
It's a
the way that
it's
those
a weird.
kits were molded is kind of challenging. Uh, all right, then we have the Fumina, and people have their opinions about this, but I found this kit a really fun kit to paint as well.
It is. Wow.
Yeah, it's very simple, isn't it?
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
they just pretty much did their thing with band presto and turned it into hard plastic. It
Mm-hmm.
works, honestly, and I hope they make more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, since
Yeah.
there was so much area to play around with the skin details, it was great to try to uh, make more shading on it. However, I don't think my
Mm-hmm.
pictures really show it.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it a little bit, and I get what you mean. Uh, Shading the bits to emphasize, the uh, different shapes in the skin everywhere and everything. So for these kits, obviously, you're not doing the same kind of painting technique of doing a black base on this under the skin tone, right?
Yeah, I'm more of laying down whites first, a flesh white,
Mm,
sort of a
okay.
warm off white, and then establishing
Hmm.
warm areas with a red pink, and then going on top of that with a misting of a flesh coat
Hmm. Okay.
from mid tone to
Uh,
light.
mhm. Sure, sure. So I mean that came out really nice, and then here's another Kingdom Death Santa Satan figure here as well. So I mean this one you did before the Oktoberfest one, right? Or
Yeah,
after?
that's actually the first one.
This is the first one.
This is probably my first um, ever Kingdom Death miniature.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And this one also has some cool effects with the lights. So you want to talk about how you painted the lights to look like the lights are lit up without actually having like actual LEDs in there or anything?
Oh yeah, that involves a lot of masking with blue tack and um, masking tape, mostly because I'm not able to do the brush paint lighting that a lot of miniature modelers are able to achieve. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of go with the same sort of effect by using an airbrush again. This one is just going with white, establishing same zenithal lighting with white, and then going with a clear yellow for the lights.
Mm-hmm. So just spraying the really bright colors, so then contrasted like down here at the base, like on like the chimney there. So against
Yeah,
that really dark color, this really bright color gives the illusion that it looks like the light, it's lights on there, but it's just painted to look like that. So it's always really cool to see that effect. I like that a lot. And these are what's the scale on these? These are like 1/24th or something.
they're close to 1/24th. I'm not familiar with the millimeter measurements that miniature painters use, though. They just call it pinup scale for Kingdom
Yeah, yeah.
Death.
I, mm. Yeah, I think it's not something that I've really looked too much into these, but yeah, as far as I've seen, I don't remember ever really seeing a scale used for them as much as stuff like from Tamiya or other resin kits and stuff usually stick to scale, but these aren't necessarily always given. But yeah, they
Yeah, it's
look
weird.
about 1/4, maybe a
Yeah,
little bit smaller than 1/20th. But they have tons of detail on them.
definitely.
All right. I want to take a look here then. Let me just see. Of the different kit batches that you sent, and over the different kit batches that you've done over the year, I think the Captain Gundam is probably one of the ones that was the most interesting. I think I want to take a look at that. And also, as we're taking a look at this too, just on a side note, for any of you guys who are watching live, you may or may not know that the new Master Grade Verka is set to be announced any minute now. So
Oh
we can get
boy.
our live reactions to what the new Master Grade Verka is going to be here momentarily. It's supposed to be announced at 11 a.m. Japan time, which is the same time here in Korea. So 1 minute from now. So hopefully we'll get some news on that. I'm just checking Twitter and not seeing anything quite yet, but we'll check that. And then also, shortly after that, and after we're taking a look at this, any of you guys watching live, if you have any questions that you want to ask to Moki, then just hang on to your questions for a few minutes while we talk about this and hopefully the Verka. And then shortly we'll get to you guys' questions you can ask live here. So think about any questions you might have. And Moki, tell us about this.
Oh boy, man.
Captain Gundam. A lot of people may not know about this Gundam, so you want to introduce Captain Gundam is an actual Gundam, or at least this is based off of the actual Gundam, right?
Yeah, my fixation with Captain Gundam started with the SD Gundam Force years ago when it was
Mm-hmm.
showing on Cartoon Network, and I thought it was a pretty cool
Mm-hmm.
design. So I attempted to make an HG scale Captain Gundam before using the SD kit, uh, way
Mm-hmm.
back. But I was able to do it using Seventh Gundam HG and the Zero Gundam from Gundam 00.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't really completely satisfied with how it was, since the entire thing about the SD design of the Captain Gundam is it's transformable and it turns into a sort of a tank thing called the gun armor.
Mm-hmm.
When I
Which,
got the recent GBN base Gundam, I found that it was a bit of a
mm-hmm.
perfect figure for customizing stuff with. That and the Leopard Da Vinci from Build Fighters. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just thought to myself, okay. I was able to do a nice build with the Brave Burning Gundam. It's my first
Uh-huh.
time going into really extensive mods. So let's go let's go a bit harder with this one. Fully transformable
Uh-huh.
with all of the gimmicks of the original SD model kit. What actually inspired
Mm-hmm.
me to start making this particular kit was the reprints of the original Captain Gundam SD kit came out around
Mm-hmm.
2019. I bought one for myself, and originally what I wanted to do was convert it to SDCS, but I was just looking at how I wanted to do SD to HG mods for my build, so I just took inspiration from the SD kit and tried to do it with the GBN base Gundam and Leopard Da Vinci. I thought it would be just a simple sort of conversion, but I ended up doing more work than I bargained for, especially with the transforming parts. The majority of the
Mm-hmm.
transforming parts is just a backpack, sort of a striker pack thing that comes from the bike. the GBD bike model for the most part, and the side
Like
tracks
this section here.
on, yeah, that part there. The side tracks
Mhm.
are actually scratch built from sheet styrene, some MS detail parts, and a 172 rubber tank treads that I had lying around.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Figuring out the transformation was challenging a bit, but it just came down to folding the figure in the right way to make it more compact and have the rest of it be covered by the accessories like the shield guns and the motor packs. I'm
Mm.
inspired mostly because of converting SD designs to HG, so that's been sort of a sub theme for me for quite a while. And doing it for the Captain
Yeah,
Gundam
and
was really great.
mm, yeah, that's one thing we haven't had a chance really to talk about, and we have a couple examples here that we can maybe take a look at in a moment as well. But you do also, I mean, aside from mostly working on HG stuff, you do also do some really cool SD stuff as well, which I think is something that not a lot of people work on. At least I think from what we kind of typically see around online. So it's cool to see someone doing some work on the SD stuff as well. So we'll take a look at that. But yeah, as you were saying, you like taking some of these SD designs and transforming them into like the kind of the full size versions.
Yes, especially with the Captain Gundam, because I had no idea that a lot of Japanese people were so nostalgic for the Captain Gundam. When I posted it on Twitter, it
Yeah.
just exploded.
Mm-hmm.
It was refreshing to see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. And for me, not really being that big of a fan of SD, it's always interesting to see those SD designs in like their full size. I mean, they're much more interesting for me like that. And this was a really cool one as well. I think just the little color apps and everything. I mean, it still has like that SD styling with like just the overall design and everything, and then like the colors and everything. But it's really interesting to see it in its full size. Let's then just real quick, so we can show some. We'll take a look at some SD stuff here as well from you. This would be the Zero Maru. Here. Here we are. Here we go. So this is a before and after.
Yeah. Uh,
Just showing the difference of it unprimed and primed, or is there much modification work in there? It looks like some of the joints or limbs changed a little bit.
yeah, there's a slight difference when it between the stock SD0 Maru and the one I built, mostly because I just replaced the inner frame parts with the SD frame instead of the normal
Okay.
CS frame that comes with the Zero Maru
Mm,
kit itself.
mm,
Mostly because I really wanted to abandon the transforming gimmick between just one
uh,
model and just buy two separate kits of the Zero Maru for both modes.
mm,
The
mm.
transformation can still work technically, but I'm just really concerned about the paint chipping off a lot because of the moving parts. So
Uh-huh.
I opted
Sure.
for the proportions of the SD frame because I found it fits better with the aesthetic of the SD Gundams.
Mm.
There were parts that
Yeah.
had gap filling, usual sharpening of the V fin, sharpening of the chin, that sort
Mm.
of stuff. But that's the most noticeable thing is it's slightly more compact than
Yeah,
the
definitely.
stock.
Just to point out, like here, you can see the basically the thigh and the upper arm sections are shortened to make these parts kind of like right up against the waist and right up into the shoulder, and like the holes in the front of the shoulder you got plugged up with some little detail parts.
Yeah.
Or is that like just a piece of runner you just stuck in there and then just filed it down on
Yeah,
there? Or
I wasn't able to buy any plug parts from Kotobukiya just yet, so I went
mm,
with a 3mm runner. Just
mm,
cut it off.
yeah, yeah. And also just removed the hard points on the side skirt and side of the arms there, it looks like too. So just mean, at first glance, you can't really see a whole lot of difference between them, but you can see just a couple of little things. It definitely looks a lot better. And then, of course, the finished build here as well. For someone who doesn't really like masking, but you also like SD kits, how's that work out?
I was beside myself masking this thing.
Yeah, I
I
guess
was
so.
so I was so enthusiastic of doing the real mode version as well, but after finishing with all the masking on the SD parts, I kind of just put it in the box.
Yeah.
But it's rewarding. It's rewarding to look at, and I
Yeah.
would want to try it again
Mm-hmm.
when I'm less stressed over it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's great.
Yeah,
Really
it
love it.
came out really nice. The red part, or the kind of metallic red for like the psycho frame parts. And I also
Yeah.
really like the kind of shading on the yellowish, goldish kind of parts there. It's really apparent. You can see there on like the ankle armor how it goes fades down to like the more orangish color at the bottom. Looks really
Ah,
nice
thanks.
as well.
I was actually debating whether I would go for a metallic finish for those gold parts or just go with the gradient with base colors. I
Hmm.
ended up with a hybrid because I just did
Yeah.
my usual thing of doing uh, shaded normal colors, but I just misted a bit of gold, a metallic gold on top of that for a bit of an extra shine.
Yeah. I was gonna say because it looks like that. It doesn't look quite gold, but it doesn't look. I mean, it obviously has some shine to it, so it's an interesting technique to do like that. It's how you can because there's of just kind of gold paint. There's loads of different colors of gold. One that's like really light, sort of like almost silver, basically, and then like really or yellow ones and really orangish colors of gold. But it's cool to see how maybe for people who do want to create this kind of effect, you can just spray just your orange and yellow kind of colors, whatever color you want first, and then just give it a little mist of whatever gold you might want to use just to give it a little bit of that effect. It's a cool effect on there. Not sure if I wanted to paint something gold, I don't think I would have thought to do it like that, but it's
Yeah,
cool.
it was an option for me to do because I always have a bit of trouble establishing the color of gold by just using gold paint
Mm,
itself, even if I'm just putting down a base color of black. It tends to be uneven for me.
mm, yeah, yeah, I get what you mean. It can be tricky. On the small parts like this, maybe wouldn't be quite as much of an issue. It'd be
Yeah,
harder
that's
to
true.
notice, but definitely on larger parts, it's hard to know because you can't tell if it's just like the lighting is kind of weird, so you can't really see if it's exactly evenly coated or not. Yeah, I get what you mean. And then how about this scarf thing? I'm just kind of interested. What's the material you used for that?
All right. The scarf is actually made of crepe paper or Japanese lantern paper, whichever they call
Oh,
it on the bookstore, and 2 to 3 layers of that with some watered down PVA glue to
uh-huh.
make it more rigid and cloth like.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. I mean, it looks really good. So it's really hard to create the kind of cloth looking effect. So that's an interesting technique to do that, and it came out really nice. I think it looks good. We also have your IMA here as well. And anything special that you did with this? I mean, the painting looks really nice, of course, but
Ah, that's all straight build. That's
mm,
pretty much how Bandai designed the kit. I didn't
mm,
actually do anything aside from sharpen her bangs, the tips of her bangs,
mm,
and just paint it normally how I would paint a frame arms girl. Because
mm.
for me, honestly, the Bill Divers IMA kit is a really big leap from what they started with from the Super Fumina.
Yeah,
This is just really beautiful.
it's much better. You felt, yeah. Yeah, it looks great. I mean, like you said, it's not like any too much like modification or anything done with it. It's just a nice paint job, and it definitely looks really good. And I know I said we were going to get to questions, but he sent a lot of cool stuff to look at. So we will take a look at, since you mentioned it, and we've mentioned it a little bit earlier as well. We will look at just one frame arms girl here as well, because we were talking about that as kind of what kind of led you into getting into doing some more figure painting as well. So we'll take a look at this one. And you also painted a frame arms girl kit for my Kotobukiya contest too, right?
Oh yeah, that.
That was also the magical girl witch though, right?
Device witch.
Mhm.
This one's the Megami device magical girl, which I had a little help from the fiance when determining what the colors would be. I figured she'd have a better grasp of how to make it pop better than I would because I'm more used to dull colors. But she gave me a color scheme that's inspired from Neptunia, a game she plays, Hyperdimension Neptunia, I think. I
Okay,
don't know if I
I don't
pronounced
know
that
it,
right.
but okay, yeah.
But the colors are really. I really have to thank her for this because
Uh-huh.
the it's just so bright.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not something I'm normally into.
Mm. Well, even the witch kit that you painted for my contest, well, I guess it was kind of like dark purple, right?
Yeah,
But I mean, it was still, it was really good, I thought too. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But comparing it to this one, it's just
yeah.
way different. It's like being made by two different people. My favorite thing about it is the gradient on the leggings and the gradient on the hair.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the gradient on the hair, and especially like then did you use some kind of like pink to like a panel lining kind of to emphasize the details in the hair?
In between the bangs, I
Yeah.
used pink real touch marker for the warm parts of the hair,
Uh,
just to add a bit of depth. God, I love
yeah.
those markers so much.
Mhm. Yeah. That just gives a nice little bit of color there in the details as well. But yeah, the gradient on the hair looks nice, and then on the legs, like you're talking about here, it's nice as well. And this one for these gold parts, what did you use for those? That's just regular gold paint.
Oh yeah,
Looks a bit different too.
this one was Gaia Vivid Orange as a base color, and then
Hmm.
I sprayed Mr. Metallic Gold on that. So it's
Okay.
still the same method, just without the shading.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, yeah.
putting down yellow or orange goes a long way into making any sort of gold paint brighter.
Yeah. And then I can see you paint a little bit of that galaxy effect here on this part as well too,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Mm.
that
So
was
very,
sort of a request from the fiance. I was happy to oblige.
of course. The faces is did you repaint the face or no?
Yeah, I repainted the face, added a bit of blush using Tamiya Weathering Master Set H.
Hmm. Uh-huh.
I was actually surprised they really made a weathering set just for doing figure faces. So
Oh,
that's a
really?
nice touch. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure if
So,
I've seen that. Let's check it out. And then for the eyes, you used the included water slide decals to put the eyes back on there. Then.
yep, I added in the water slide decals and just a slight coat of gloss on top of the eyes to make it stand out from the rest of the face, which is matte.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, they look really nice. I'm looking forward to you working on some more
I miss
Framework
working on these things.
Megami device stuff in the future. Yeah. Yeah, it works really good. Just with your style, because yeah, like you were saying, like the colors and things is different from your normal style for how you do your robots. But I mean, I think you got a good eye for these as well. So looking forward to more in the future. All right, guys. So there's more examples that we could look at, and Moki has tons of work that he's done. So if you guys are interested, just check out his different social media. It's lots of stuff to see. But I want to give you guys some time to ask some questions here. Bandai's late. I'm refreshing the page here, and
There's no update?
yeah, they on the official Twitter. You'd think that's where it'd be. They posted the same image that they posted before. They just posted again at that time. but let me see here. I don't think there's anything. Yeah. Check out the new exciting information below. Oh, maybe we have to go to the website.
Mm.
I should.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, they put up a website for those reveals, right?
Maybe that's why. I expected it just be on Twitter, but maybe they want to direct traffic to the website, I guess. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, here it is on the website. Okay. Let's have a look. Are you ready, Moki? What's your guess?
I already told you earlier, but
Yeah, you told me. Well, let everyone know.
I really wanted to see the G stuff.
Oh no. Oh, the website didn't load it. Maybe it's getting flooded, I guess, probably. But let's share this and let everyone have a look. It is the Wing Gundam Zero EW Verka.
Good God. Really?
Yep. There you go.
Just
Yeah, a little birdie told me, so it's not news to me. I'd known about it for a little while, but it's cool. I'll have to really take a close look at this. Just the line. It looks like all we've got for the time being is just the line art here. Unfortunately, it would have been cool to see an actual prototype or something. But just based on the line art, I mean, my first impression is it just kind of looks like an upscaled version of the RG.
Yeah, man, I was about to say that.
But I mean, the old MG, honestly, I think the old MG still kind of looks fine. It's kind of a pain to work with because it's got seam lines and doesn't really hold the rifles really well. So
I remember so much from the inner frame of the old Endless Waltz Wing Master grades, and they were just so painful to build because there's like 100 more parts than a normal Master grade inner frame, and it's smaller.
yeah, I mean the old Master grade I don't think is that bad, and so I mean surely this new Master grade will be much better, so that's good. But I mean,
If it's a scale up, it might be better.
is it the most exciting thing? Maybe not. Like having something like a G Self or something totally new to the Master grade line would have been nice, but 2.0s are pretty cool too.
It's okay, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not the wing design that I like, but I can understand.
What's
People
your preferred?
People know I'm a death sight freak.
Yeah. I thought you meant like a different version of the wing, like a Wing Zero or something.
The Wing Gundam,
the original,
Verka. The one that actually turns into a bird mode is nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. That was the second or third Master Grade Verka design.
Yeah.
There was the Gundam, and then after the Gundam is what, either the Ball or the Wing Gundam, right? One of those.
Yeah, the ball is weird.
The Ball is great. Yeah, it still stands up really well. But yeah. So I mean, anyway, there's the news. Pretty exciting. I mean, I'm sure it'll be a cool kit. So we'll see.
Great for people who are expecting Wing, I guess.
And I mean, it just kind of seems odd too, because it was 2 years ago that we had the high res version as well.
Yeah.
So you had the high res, and then the RG came out just a little bit before that, not too long before that. So
is Wing popular again? In Japan, I mean.
In Japan, yeah, I think it's still popular in Japan, obviously. So I mean, because I think we kind of think of it as like, for a lot of us outside of Japan, Wing is a series that kind of brought a lot of people into.
Yeah, that's true.
In Gundam, but I I don't know if a lot of people still have necessarily held on to that nostalgia quite as much as a lot of people in Japan have, I guess, for at least liking the designs anyway. If I had to guess, I would imagine probably maybe a lot of people in Japan are kind of just more into like the designs rather than like the actual story of Wing, because it'd be kind of hard
Ah,
to it'd be kind of hard, I think, to make the case that like you love Gundam Wing for the story of the series, because it's an all right
I,
story.
hon- I
Anime
honestly
is not
don't.
that good.
But I love the designs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So that's why I think probably just the designs are really popular, more so than like the anime itself. But anyway, there you go. All right. We need to wrap up pretty soon, so let's try to take a couple of questions here. Enrico asked, how do you achieve the nice combination of bright colors and random subtle color variation I always see in your mecha builds? We talked about that a little bit towards the beginning, but we can just
Yeah.
talk about that again.
It's starting off with black to build up the contrast, and then
Mm,
instead of just spraying the base color directly, I tend to put down a lighter color, like say a light gray or a white,
mm,
in a mottled pattern to create tonal variation on the kit. So that establishes a bit of a good range of light and dark spots on the model to make it more visually interesting.
mm. Yeah, so it's all about just kind of building it up, which seems like doing it the way that you're doing it seems like it would take more time, but you're still able to do it very quickly. It's interesting. All right. But yeah, so if so like for example, if you were gonna paint a part that is blue and you wanted to get like a really nice blue, so you'll do black and then like some kind of base sort of like highlighting a little bit in like a light gray or like white kind of color, and
Yeah,
then blue
exactly.
on top of that.
Just go
Mm,
with the color on top of that.
mm,
And when you go spray the color, you make sure it's a bit thinned down so
mm.
that you can control how light or how dark you want the final
Yeah,
colors to be.
yeah. Keeping the opacity kind of down, because if it's too high, then all the tonal variation that you've created underneath will all be just kind of lost by just if the paint's not thinned down enough, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same as doing digital painting on Photoshop, I guess.
Mm. Let me see. Any other questions, you guys? Let me see if I missed any. Uh, Patrick used a super chat. Sorry, I missed that, Patrick, but thank you. He thought that the Easy 8 Destiny GPO2 would have been a nice Verka. Yeah, I agree.
Yes. Oh man, I would like something more solid like that because it really shows the design chops of Katoki.
Mm, yeah, like we all know that Katoki can do cool wing designs. He's been doing like cool wing designs forever,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Why did he ever have to go away from UC? I liked his Faz. It's
Yeah, I mean,
beautiful.
I, I imagine he's probably just going to be like bouncing back and forth. Although, when was the last non UC
You
Verka?
have a point. You have a point
Yeah,
there.
he does pretty much stick to UC, at least like for the master grade Verka releases. But anyway, an Easy 8 would have been great, definitely, because then they can make a new ground Gundam and a new ground GM based off that as well. Would be cool. I mean, those old master grades do still hold up quite well as well too, I think, despite their age. But of course, new designs of those would be nice. The new GPO2, of course, the master grade GPO 1, 2, 3, those master grades need updates as well. So yeah. The Destiny, I think, not rather than a Verka is probably likely to get a master grade 2.0 at some point. It's safe to assume that. Let's see. Annie Plamo asked, when are you going to paint the using the Max Watanabe technique? So I think he means like you talked about a little bit before about using Max's technique of just the black basing, but I think he means like the color splotching.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm still trying to find a good model for that.
Mm.
If anybody has suggestions for me, that'd be great.
One of
I want
the
it.
Exceed Zaku heads, if you can get your hands on one of those.
I'll see if I can shop for one of those. I
That's
think they
what I've
still
been
have
planning
those
to do.
online.
I've
Nice.
got a Zaku head over here. The black base is already down on it, and I've been meaning to try out that Max's color technique on this, and it's in like the whip black hole.
Oh
So
man.
yeah, but yeah, you should try that out. I've been wanting to try it out too. It's an interesting technique. If anyone's watching who doesn't know what we're talking about, Max Watanabe, very famous Japanese modeler, what he does is sometimes he'll do silver first, but silver or not, the main thing is just black base coat, and then it's usually like 3 or 4 colors, like yellow, green, red, blue, like really bright colors that he'll just like splotch on there, sometimes with airbrush and sometimes just by hand brushing. Just like splotch on there, making all these different color splotches. So maybe you guys have seen some of these work in progress photos online. Some other Japanese modelers also use this technique, but just doing all these color splotches on there, and then your base color over the top of that, and it gives you a really interesting effect. It's used a lot more in other things, not Gunpla, like Machine and Krieger. People use it a lot, and maybe other different sci-fi stuff more so than in Gunpla, but it certainly can be used in Gunpla as well. And let's see. Everyone's just kind of in the chat is talking about the Verka. Understandable. But all right,
Yes.
any last questions for Moki? Because we're going to wrap up here in a minute. Feel free to ask. But we covered quite a bit. But the thing with talking about your work, Moki, is that you have so much work to talk about. But again, I will just recommend people. Again, if you missed it earlier, we talked about Moki being on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all under Moki Plamo. So check out his stuff there. And there's a lot of things to see, of course. So what are you working on now?
Right now, I just finished up the high grade Origins RX-7802 Gundam.
Yep.
I'm thinking about either building the middle type version because I've just finished the early type, or maybe working on one of the P Bandai stuff like the Mudrock. So I haven't opened it yet.
That would be cool. Yeah, that's another fun build as well. And doing another. So if you're gonna do another of the Origin Gundam, you're gonna do it in like the same or similar colors. You're gonna change up the color scheme on that.
Maybe I'm gonna. I'm thinking about using the same color palette as a fixed figuration type for the middle type Gundam. Maybe go for a lighter blue. A lighter blue and maybe the yellow.
That'd be nice. A little bit just kind of lighter color scheme overall. The one that you just finished is very like the colors are really rich colors, which it looks kind of more closer to like the actual like manga color scheme of that, like the original artwork colors.
Yeah.
Do have that really rich color to them, but I think it could be interesting doing everything like lightening some of the colors as well too. Could look really cool. So looking forward to it.
Thanks.
All right, then if there's no other questions for the time being, of course you guys can, if you have questions later, you can reach out to Moki on his different social media platforms. Very easy to get a hold of. So if you want to talk to him about his techniques, it's safe to say that you're open to taking people's questions, Moki.
Yeah, and for the most part, I think I put 2017. I put up an article on how to paint in my style. I'll just send them the link, I guess.
Yeah. So if you're interested in knowing more about that, just where do you have that posted at the moment?
There was a call before from the Gunpla 101 website for articles. I made a contribution there for painting.
Yes. I remember. Right. Yeah, definitely. Maybe just go ahead and throw up that link again on your Facebook page or something as well too, so anyone who's watching who wants to head over there, they can find it and check that out to see more in detail. Because yeah, you had some different work in progress photos and stuff on there that was good to also illustrate the painting style as well. So
Yeah.
I remember that now. All right. Well, Moki, I appreciate it. Are you excited for the Wing Gundam or not?
Nah. Nah.
Not that much. Yeah,
Not
you
that
don't
much.
you don't do a whole lot of master grade stuff anyway. But yeah, if
Or
it was
Wing.
something really exciting, maybe it would have got you excited. But yeah, I understand. We'll see. As we see more photos in the next couple months, maybe it'll be more exciting. For me, I don't know. At the moment, it's okay.
Same.
I'm not. I'm more excited about seeing updates for the new PG Unleashed RX-78, because basically what I'm waiting to find out is if it's going to be based off of the design of the Walking Gundam or not, and I'm really hoping it's not, but waiting to find out. Anyway, Moki, great to talk with you again. Again, if anyone's not seen our original interview we did 4 years ago, you can check that out on my channel. If you search, you can find that from when I visited there in the Philippines. We were actually sitting down in person interview, so that was fun. You can check that out. But appreciate everyone hanging out, watching. Thanks for hanging out there in the chat, asking questions, giving your reactions as well. Moki, thank you. Anything else you
Thanks
want
for
to say?
having me. It's always a pleasure being invited to talk because it's like a good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get to talk to a lot of people like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's refreshing, man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's great to talk with you again. And just keep up the good work. Doing great.
I will, definitely.
All right. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye, everyone. All right.